Hi Klaus, lovely to meet you the other day and start doing some work on your game one-to-one rather than just online. Some great progress made in regards to both your understanding and your execution as the session went on. Thanks for your efforts throughout the day. It was great to see. Love your enthusiasm, and I'm sure that you're going to progress in a really good manner through in the coming months. So we take a little look at the initial action and the assessment that we made. Key areas really were the way the knees changed, flexed from P1 to P3. There's very, very little changing in the knee flex. The lead arm, accumulator 4, would work out in front of you. The hands would raise. And whenever the arms are going up and out, the club head starts to roll in, courtesy of the side bending of the wrists, which is what we see here. And when you do that, you're getting the sensation of, and what's actually happening is the right hand is leaving the left thumb by about P2.5 to P3. So there's a little bit of a regripping going on. So hands are coming up, club's rolling in behind you. Basically because the right knee doesn't change flex, the hips don't really turn at that point, lead shoulder stays very high, etc, etc. So the first thing we did was we put a cane down on the toe line. So when you're working on your backswing, get a cane that's sort of parallel with the target line, then angle it in maybe 30 degrees or so. And the goal here is to match the lead arm up with the shaft by the time you get to P3. Now we did talk about the tendency to side bend the wrist is still going to be in there. Ultimately, we'd want to gradually move the club head out and the hands in a little bit more by P2. But that'll start to happen anyway as the body starts to engage and create some room for the hands to work on an inward path from P1 to P3. But the goal here initially was just to tidy up P3, get P4 a little bit deeper, and start to encourage the lower body to engage a little bit sooner, change flex more, which would then reduce your need to drive the hips forward in transition. So we can see straight away that the shoulder tilts are different, the body's much more engaged, the torso, hips are considerably different, and there's a huge difference in the way the knees are working. So right knee straightening, left knee flexing, allowing the hips to turn, allowing the arms to trace a more inward path at P3. And as a result, P4 looking much deeper. So we don't need to drive the hips quite as hard in transition in order to keep the club on the inside. I mean, far from it really. You do too good a job of that. So that was tidying up P1 to P4. We then talked about your alignments at P7. So lower body would drive, right shoulder would drop under, chest would stay facing the camera a little bit too long. And then at impact, we were seeing a player whose right arm or whose arms were a little bit too much to the right, shoulders were a little bit too square, hips haven't quite opened up enough, right leg not straight but relatively straight, not a lot of flex been added, and then hits out at the ball a little bit too much, causing the ball to potentially hook or block. So what we talked about was changing your alignments at impact. I'm just going to take you down to P7. Be a little bit more open with the chest, a little bit more open with the hips, a little bit lower with the handle, because that suits a stronger grip. You're a stronger grip player, more of a closed club face player. So what we don't really want is we don't really want the club coming too much from the inside. And we'd like to see the chest getting squirt on a little bit sooner than what we're demonstrating here. So the bulk of the work that you did was trying to improve your alignments at P5, 5.5, 6 and 7. So here I've got the shaft across the shoulders. This is a good drill for you. We're trying to just get the chest squirt on by P5, 5.5. Rather than being facing the camera. So you can see the difference in the two positions at that point. And that's going to have a knock-on effect to what we see at P6. There you go. So you see a marked difference in the two swings at P6. More flex. As we add more flex in the knees, in the pelvis, in the chest, the arm starts, or the club starts to come out a little bit more in front of the hands. So this would be the exact opposite of what you would normally get. And then we ask you to feel like you're going to continue that down to P7. And you can see when you get there now, when you're doing it in an extreme manner, that it's a completely different beast. Neither of these two would work. The guy on the left needs to work on what the guy on the right's doing to strike a balance. He needs a little bit more flex, a little bit more rotation, so that the exit can be controlled and the rate of closure is not as high. So that all fits in with the type of movement that you're trying to create and the type of ball flight that you're trying to control as well. When we look at the work that we've just been doing viewed from face on, so here's one of your earlier swings where the lower body's driving pretty hard, head starts to drop back, pelvis out races the upper body, so the lower body gets out in front of you a little bit too fast, club drops in behind the hands, and we create a lot of axis tilt. That is going to shift the swing out to the right, and as the right shoulder gets a little bit too low, a little bit too quick, the club face closure is going to increase. So there's your block and your hook. When you're doing the exercise where you feel like you're going to get chest onto the ball by P5, 5.5, you can see now that there's actually an opposite effect. We tend to create no, if not a little bit of negative axis tilt. The centre of the pelvis, rather than thrusting forward at a high rate, is actually a little bit more centred. Now again, these are two extremes. A blend between the two. The move on the left needs a little bit of what the move on the right is demonstrating. If you play that down a little bit further, you can see very open versus slightly square stroke shut off with the shoulders. Certainly completely different look in regards to the torso, so more flexion and therefore more rotation, more extension and therefore less rotation. Would either one of those be, would either one of those be correct? No. Does the move on the left need a little bit of what the move on the right is demonstrating? 100%. So the drill is an extreme drill to try and tidy your positions up at P5, P5.5 and P6. So introduce some much needed rotation into the golf swing, so therefore you can start to control the amount at which you block and you hook the golf ball. So whilst we only worked on two key aspects that are really important in regards to you controlling the golf ball, and you saw at the end of your session that the little draw was more refined, the hook had started to diminish quite dramatically, and the push, you had a way of articulating that to yourself. If you don't turn through the ball, or if you don't get chest on soon enough, that fits into a block out to the right. So you have a way of explaining your shots in a much more appropriate manner. Good luck with it. If you've got any questions, feel free to send me an email or text me on WhatsApp, and I look forward to watching this one progress during the coming months. Like I said, great meeting you. Thanks for your effort. Hope you had a great day and a safe journey back home. Well done.